Johnson, if we start with about the campaign itself, how important it is and what the aims are setting out to achieve moving forward?
Well, I think it's very important because it's targeting average people. And I suppose when you do something like Drinkaware have done in conjunction with the Health England, Public Health England group, the fact that it's talking about drink-free days for the average person who sits at home and because they're bored they have 3 glasses of wine or 3 beers, that resonates with everybody. Once you then start talking about, it helps your liver and it's a disease, alcohol, and people shouldn't drink, and it's about, cutting down, 90% of people will say, that's not me, so I don't need to be interested in this. So, it's about just, having drink-free days for the average person who, we're not saying don't go out and drink, of course, and if you're out socially, you're going to drink. But when you're at home and you're bored, instead of drinking, go for a walk, do some exercise. Because I actually went on the website, drinkfreedays.co.uk, and put in the amount I drink, 3 glasses of wine a week on average, which is the right amount that I drink, and it said that 51% of people drink less than me. I suppose I take into account people who don't drink, and that is well below what people should do. So I'm not talking from personal experience, I'm just talking about the fact that in this day and age when we're trying to be healthy and we're telling people about the benefits of cholesterol and eating less and eating correctly, drink is also a part of that. And as I said, for me the most important thing is not preaching and pointing the finger and saying you've got a drink problem and we're targeting you. It's the average person. Well, and it's also saying continue to drink, because of course there's nothing wrong with drinking in moderation, but just having drink-free days rather than saying you can drink every day but drink less. It's about having 2 or 3 drink-free days, and it's not saying then when you are drinking get absolutely smashed or drunk. It's just like being sensible about it. That is why if you look at the target audience in terms of age group, we're targeting people aged between 45 and 60 who would have been around in the 80s when that was part of the culture. Well, it's not just footballers. I mean, it's not the fact that footballers don't go out, so we're not going to go out to society. The old days of the culture that we were in, which was a part of society, not just footballers, a lot of people did it. Absolutely, because of course I may only drink 3 glasses of wine, but of course, I have friends, and in fact, a friend of mine said, yeah, that's the problem. He said, at home, he's sitting down, he's bored, his wife cooks a meal, he has 3 glasses of wine for no reason. So it's just for the average person. As I said, it's not a personal thing to me, and it's not a big problem. It's just being aware of it.
Given your past experiences, could you ever envisage where we've got to today? Obviously, there's still work to be done, but there are tangible things being done to change racism and inclusion and things in the game.
Well, we've got to, when I played, thinking about 8 players on the pitch, now you've got 8 players on the pitch, nothing really has necessarily changed. What you've changed is the overt racism, but it exists in society, still exists in all walks of society, which football's one. So as much as we've changed, how many black managers do we have? Has it really changed? So we can't kid ourselves to think that it's changed. It's doing what it can, but what we have to do is we have to change it in society, not in football. Change it in society, it'll change in football, not the other way around. But because football's media attentive, you're looking at football to drive society, you cannot do that. It's impossible to do that. Because before we are football fans, racist or otherwise, or football people, racist or otherwise, football owners, football chairmen, football people, we are members of society first and we're footballers second. But what we're trying to do is trying to say that it's a problem in football, it's a problem in the police, and the rest of society is okay. That's not the situation. So yes, football is doing all it can, and it's getting more media attention, but in many respects, to change, it really has to come from society. So it's great to see that Kick It Out and other organisations like that are having a much higher profile, but all people have to do is just respect that for the 90 minutes while the game's on, and for the other 6 days that we do what they want to do, and that's not football, and Kick It Out can do nothing about that. So, it's, but, at least something's been done. It's an irrational pressure. It's not an undue pressure, it's a stupid pressure. Because as I said, football can do nothing about getting rid of racism. Society can. Well, first of all, Raheem Sterling can't change anything. It's the people who may feel that way towards Raheem Sterling has to change. And Raheem Sterling cannot make them change because he is who he is. So he can do nothing to make them change their mind as to whether they discriminate against him or not. They have to change their minds. So they have to change their perception of him for them to change. He's not going to change their perception because he's going to be who he is. And regardless of how he is or not, why is their perception based on Raheem Sterling as an individual? So therefore, this is what black people are like because that's Raheem Sterling. Because you wouldn't look at Harry Kane or Paul Gascoigne, because if you wanted to have a perception of white people, would you base it because Paul Gascoigne's white and say this is what white people are like? No, we wouldn't. So these are obviously complex issues we have to understand. It's not as simplistic as saying that a black player can change perception based on what he does. That's too simplistic. But, I think Raheem has been unfairly treated. But, obviously we all have a responsibility, not just Raheem, as footballers, as people. I have a responsibility as a father. Biggest responsibility is for me, comes from the parents. I'm responsible for my son, not any my son may like a high-profile actor, singer, footballer, and if ever he did something because that actor, singer, footballer did something and he wanted to copy him, I feel as if I've let him down as a parent. And it's too easy for us now to point the finger at a footballer and say, it's his fault why my son has gone off the rails rather than looking at ourselves. So, yeah, obviously people think differently about certain things. I just think we all have a responsibility.